effect on catalytic converter thefts. So the maroon line is 2021, and in April of 2021, the City of Houston changed some administrative rules related to catalytic converters. The incidents were on the rise, and the City of Houston took action and changed some administrative rules. It actually helped stop some of the sales, but it had an unintended consequence of moving those sales below ground. It didn't stop the thefts. And then in September of 2021, that same year, the state implemented House Bill 4110, which basically mirrored the City of Houston. And you can see that catalytic converter incidents continue to rise. Then the gold line at the top is 2022. And March 31st of 2022, Harris County Deputy Darren Almendarez was killed when he tried to intervene when suspects tried to steal his catalytic converters off of his personal car. You can see that was at the height of our catalytic converter incident, and they declined a little bit after that. And then in May of 2022, two things happened. The City of Houston passed an ordinance for the possession of a catalytic converter, and also that same month they held in Houston the Texas Senate Criminal Justice Committee on Catalytic Converters. And people from the industry and law enforcement, like myself, we were able to testify at that committee and give feedback on what we needed to address the problem. In July of 2022, the Houston Police Department Northeast Crime Suppression Team was part of a nationwide arrest, working with the Homeland Security. They arrested 7 people in Houston, but it was a multi-agency nationwide operation, and you can see the effect of that where we started to see a decline in catalytic converter thefts. And then the Navy line is 2023. And in May of 2023, Senate Bill 224, which addressed catalytic converters, passed and went into effect. And then you can see since then, catalytic converter incidents really have declined. Next slide, please. So this slide's an overview on Senate Bill 224. It's cited as the Deputy Darren Almendarez Act. It took effect immediately upon authorization on May 29th, 2023, which was a huge benefit to us instead of waiting till September. And from the previous slide, you can see the impact that it had. The law provided improvements to criminal mischief and theft charges related to catalytic converter thefts. It made them state jail felonies. It added a new offense, unauthorized possession of catalytic converter. It included enhancements, which were for if the suspect had been previously convicted under that section, if they were engaging in organized activity, which is 3 or more in that incident, or if they possessed a firearm during the commission of that offense. So really gave law enforcement some tools to address this issue. And most importantly, Senate Bill 224 provided a funding mechanism for law enforcement tasked with the criminal and regulatory aspects of related to catalytic converter crimes. The law tasked the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority with handling the funds for the grants for the Senate Bill 224. And as a little background, the Houston Police Department has been a grant recipient from the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority, I'm just going to call them MVCPA, for about 30 years. They fund a large majority of the auto theft division. They provide funds for personnel, education, training, and equipment. And then, so as part of that, we've already been a part of that MVCPA for the auto theft side, but this new funding provided another grant stream specific to catalytic converters. So we've also been awarded grants under Senate Bill 224 for the grant recipient, in addition to helping the auto theft division. And within HPD, the auto theft division handles the criminal aspect of catalytic converters, but the Property and Financial Crimes Division, they handle the regulatory aspect. But we work hand in hand. Our people work together all the time and communicate. And in fact, as part of Senate Bill 224, they formed an advisory committee I'm a member of the Senate Bill 224 Advisory Committee, and so is Sergeant Bob Carson from the Metal Theft Unit of Property and Financial Crime. So we're there to represent the City of Houston on that advisory committee. Next slide, please. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what the problem was in the City of Houston related to catalytic converter, you can see that the issue was citywide. This map specifically is from 2022, but it didn't change much over the years. And combined 21, 22, and 23, the City of Houston had over 19,000 catalytic converter thefts. And just to explain that 19,000, it's actually more than that, because the way we report crime through NIBRS, if one parking lot, let's say it's a parking lot of buses that gets hit all in one night and one commission of a crime, that's one incident. But if 50 buses were hit, that's obviously a much larger impact. So this is 19,000 incidents, but I will tell you the number of actual catalytic converters stolen was much higher. Next slide, please. The next couple slides are just to kind of show you what catalytic converters don't typically have any markings on them, which makes it a harder crime to address, to be able to place that specific piece of equipment back to a specific car and a complainant. So this is about 1,300 catalytic converters that are currently in our property room. Next slide, please. The next two slides are just different aspects of that. And one more slide, please. And next slide, please. I mentioned that part of Senate Bill 224 also addresses the regulatory aspect of this. So there are 88 metal recycling facilities within the City of Houston. Again, that falls under the Metal Theft Unit of the Property and Financial Crimes Division. But catalytic converter theft isn't the fault of the businesses, right? They're in business and they're trying to do things the right way. And as part of that advisory committee that I mentioned, industry representatives are also on that committee. So we've been able to work together and learn from them, and they learn from us, and trying to improve this process on what we can do to address catalytic converter crimes. One thing the Metal Theft Unit is working on currently as part of Senate Bill 224 is the education phase with these metal recycling facilities. They have to declare to the state in a certain way if they are going to purchase catalytic converters. So they're in that education phase right now, working with the businesses. Next slide, please. Again, the funding for through MVCPA and Senate Bill 224 has been instrumental in helping us address this problem. The grant funds are significant in providing personnel, overtime, technology, vehicles, and license plate readers for us to use. And this leads itself to multi-unit collaborative task force. So it's the Auto Theft Division, the Precious Metal Unit that I mentioned, patrol, even air support. Again, that helps us address the physical theft and then entry of the catalytic converters into that recycling stream. And this encompasses everything that we do in law enforcement: reactive investigations, proactive investigations. We do undercover and covert operations, regulatory enforcement, and then obviously crime prevention and education. Next slide, please. I wanted to give an example of how this has been successful in the City of Houston. In 2023, Penske trucks were hit hard. Over a 7-month period, they had 147 catalytic converters stolen. You can see from the map this happened across the City of Houston. It's a huge loss to the to the Penske truck business, over $600,000 in repairs that they needed to get their trucks back up and running. Next slide, please. Our auto theft proactive unit worked in operation. They identified through crime analysis there were 2 locations, mainly at Home Depots, that were being hit the most, where the Penske trucks are parked. Those were 999 North Loop West and 5445 West Loop South. Our Auto Theft Division Task Force utilized a vehicle. We had cameras in this operation. we caught a suspect on camera stealing the catalytic converter from this vehicle at 999 North Loop West. That suspect was arrested for was charged with felony theft. Within 3 weeks, that same suspect went to the next highest location at 5445 West Loop South and again hit our vehicle and stole the catalytic converter on camera and was again charged with felony theft. After the second arrest, the incidents with Penske trucks dropped to 0. Next slide, please. And again, this is just really to illustrate those grant funds and what we're able to do because of Senate Bill 224. I mean, it gave us the resources to use crime analysis, right, to know where the top locations were, to implement overtime and extra operations during the nighttime thefts, our technology and equipment that we used during the operation, and then the license plate reader services. Next slide, please. I wanted to also talk about auto thefts and the current trends that we've seen in the city of Houston and give a little bit of an update on that. I'm sure you've all heard about the Hyundai and Kia challenges. It really started in the Midwest but came down here to the South because of security vulnerabilities in those vehicles, 2011 to 2021 models mostly. Really, you could just rip apart the steering column and use a USB cord to start that car. It really drove up our auto thefts within the city of Houston, which was also seen across the country. We were not an outlier in this. Hyundai and Kia did implement strategies to remedy those security issues. They actually did a big event here in Houston, a 3-day event that was free for citizens to go. But any citizen, any owner of Hyundai or Kia can go to their dealership and get the security upgrade, or if their car isn't eligible for the security upgrade, they would get the old-fashioned steering wheel lock issued to them. But we've seen those thefts drop because of the enhancements that Hyundai and Kia have implemented since then. Another new strategy that suspects have taken to is key programmers. For about $500 or $600, you can buy a key programmer online and learn how to use it. They mainly target high-end vehicles. This is Denali's and Escalades, Hellcats, the F-250s and 350s. And within a matter of seconds, they can use this device that looks like a cell phone. You can see in the picture, they're pretty small. They look like a tablet or a cell phone, and they go up to the car and they can program a new key for that car. You can order blank key fobs online, and so they can either start that car and go park it and then later program a new key, or they can program a new key right there. So that's, we're constantly keeping up with the new techniques being used and evolving our strategies to address that. And then another rise that we saw hit Freightliner trucks. And this is called the Common Powertrain Controller, and it really is kind of the brains of the truck, and it's relatively easy to get to in the Freightliner. So thieves were targeting these, and it was a huge impact to the trucking industry. It really started to rise at the end of 2023, and just in a short amount of time, we had 140 incidents, which resulted in $1.7 million in damage to the trucking industry. And you can imagine how hard this hits the industry. They can't drive those trucks. And even in 22, 23, these common powertrain controllers were sometimes hard to get. The supply has come back for those, but still, it was a significant impact to the trucking industry. Again, our Auto Theft Task Force worked with the trucking industry and the companies here in Houston. They were able to work this operation. They arrested 6 people on 7 felony charges, recovered 5 guns. Those same suspects had also been arrested in Mississippi and found with 60 common powertrain controllers. They travel. They don't just stay in Houston. But after those arrests, the numbers decreased to only 11 incidents after those arrests. Next slide, please. This slide is to basically give you an overview of what we as the Auto Theft Division are doing to combat auto theft within the city of Houston. Obviously, I've already talked about the funding through the MVCPA and what a benefit that is. We also, as part of the auto theft division, we have reactive, proactive, undercover, and regulatory investigations. We've streamlined our divisional manpower. That's, been well publicized that we need manpower, but hope that'll come in time. But in the meantime, what are we doing with the manpower that we have? We used to have an evening shift, but we were so depleted on evening shift, they weren't really able to do investigations. So we expanded our day shift hours, moved those evening shift people to day shift, and we've seen tremendous increases in charges filed. And really, the communication among my detectives has just been outstanding since we've made that change. We've increased training both for our detectives in auto theft division as well as the entire department. We created an in-service class for patrol officers and crime suppression teams to let them know what the latest trends are and what they should look for in their patrol activity. And then also, we've worked with the district attorney's office to have an auto theft dedicated assistant district attorney. It's been helpful over the last few years where that district attorney has actually come out on operations with us to see how these suspects work. They work a little differently when compared to other crime types. So it was good for them to see that in practice, and it's been very helpful for us. And as a result of kind of all of these changes, you can see that even when we compared 2023 over 2022, our charges filed went up by 22%. And with the overtime funding and other changes that we made, the operations that we conducted went up over 40%. And even year to date, this 2024 over 23, our charges are up 19% over the same time period last year, and our operations are up even more, 40% over last year. And next slide is the last slide. I'm open to questions, should you have any.
Thank you so much, Commander, for the presentation. I think that this computer system isn't working properly, so if anyone has a question, just kind of flag me down. But Councilmember Alcorn.
Thank you, Commander, for the presentation. On the catalytic converters, yeah, definitely the legislation and the funding making an impact, but also the prices of those metals have gone considerably down, right?
Correct.
I mean, you can't make as much money off the catalytic
That's
converters.
correct.
So that was another reason for the drop. About how much money do we get and spend from the MVCPA on both the catalytic converter stuff and the auto theft?
I thought that might be a question, so I wrote it down. Let me
Okay, good.
Okay.
And is that an annual amount that'll keep recurring, or do we have to apply?
We reapply for it.
We reapply. Mm-hmm. But did the legislation set up the money for as long as?
The way the legislation is set up is, and what changed in Senate Bill 224 is every time you renew your auto insurance, for every car, it's $5 per car goes to that. So $1, Senate Bill 224 takes $1 of that for catalytic converter.
Okay.
The remaining money of that, 60% goes to fund trauma rooms across the state of Texas, 20% goes to the general fund for law enforcement purposes, and the remaining 20% goes specifically to the MVCPA to fund auto theft task force across the state of Texas.
Interesting.
Yes.
And so do we know what Houston has spent?
Yeah, so in fiscal year 24, on the auto theft grant through MVCPA, we received just over $1.5 million. Fiscal year 24, for the catalytic converter grant, we received just over $1.2 million.
Okay.
For fiscal year 25, auto theft grant, we've been increased to just over $1.9 million. For the fiscal year 25 catalytic converter, we're at $994,000.
Okay, great. Love to see that money come in. And you did the stats on charges increasing, operations increasing, that's all good, but do we have overall stats that are auto thefts going down, up, same?
I can, with those with the Hyundai and Kias going down, they have gone down. I just got this presentation at the end of last year, so
that's fine.
I did not include stats.
So, yeah, okay. I just wanted to know if they were, I know the catalytic converter trend, great.
Right, and auto thefts are also on the decline. Actually, I think they run the stats by council district. Auto thefts are down in every council district except for one, which is Councilmember Pollard. I believe they were up 5%.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And during the presentation, we were also joined by council members Castillo, Martinez, Carter, staff from Councilmember Davis's office and Councilmember Plummer's office online. Up next, staff from Councilmember Davis's office.
Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, Councilmember Alcorn kind of stole my question. She read my mind about the grant funding, but I just want to also say it was an excellent presentation. Councilmember Davis, he ran on public safety. After he returned from Chicago, he realized he didn't recognize our town. And the Penske, you was talking about the catalytic converters, the trucking, that's just a beautiful example of organized crime. And that's what he ran on to try to get that kind of organized crime being a issue to Houston. So thank you for a good job. Thank you for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Staff from Councilmember Huffman's office.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Looking at the chart on slide 3, it looks like we're doing a great job with catalytic converters. And so my question to you is the trend going down because word's getting out that we're cracking down on catalytic converter thefts, or is the word getting out about our enforcement, or are we catching the people who are responsible for this?
I think all of the above, and I think it's also what Councilmember Alcorn, the price of the metals, the 3 metals that are in catalytic converters also went down, but that's why I did the overlay of the laws that passed. I mean, I think you can see when those laws passed, you could see a decline. When that word got out, we really saw the decrease in the catalytic converter incidences, and at the same time, the prices went down. So what came first, I can't say, but I think it's all of the above, along with the arrest that was nationwide that also had a big impact.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we were also joined online by staff from Councilmember Flickinger's office. Up next, staff from Councilmember Kamen's office.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your presentation. I'm glad to see that auto thefts are going down in the city. I was hoping after the presentation y'all would be able to share some information about guns being stolen out of cars. Thank you so much for y'all's support with our safe storage initiative, making sure that those guns stay off the streets and out of the hands of those who shouldn't have them. So I was just hoping to get some information on the trends we're seeing with guns being stolen out of cars.
Thanks for highlighting that issue. I don't have those numbers with me today, but that's something since I've been in auto theft division that I've tried to highlight. A lot of people look at auto theft as a property crime, but it's a nexus to every other violent crime, including the number of cars, guns that are left in vehicles. It's a message that we've really tried to get out.
Thank you.
Staff from Councilmember Ramirez's office.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commander. Could you repeat that information you said regarding the funding for the MVCPA? You said it liability from the insurance. You went a little fast for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. So MVCPA receives funding that's outlined in the state statute. So every time you renew your insurance, for every car you have, you pay $5 per car. $1 of that is taken off for the catalytic converter Senate Bill 224 fund.
Okay. Do we have any information on the percentage of folks who do or do not have liability insurance in the city of Houston?
I don't have that information.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Alcorn.
Do you have some good advice for people to not get your car stolen? I mean, I've heard of people putting their air tags on them, and then do y'all find the burglars, the thieves with the air tags? But are there others? I mean that might be expensive for people to do or whatever. But other than keeping your car in your garage and that kind of stuff, is there just some good common sense ways to not have your car stolen?
Right. It seems simple, but most cars that are stolen are unlocked.
Oh.
So lock your car. Is probably the number one piece of advice that we can get. A lot of people leave their cars unlocked. A lot of people leave the key fobs in the cars. So remove the key fobs, lock the cars. That's probably the biggest advice that I could give.
Do you find some that have air tags on them? Have you been able to find some?
We have. I wouldn't say it's that many.
Okay.
It's hit or miss. The suspects that do this for a living, they look for that.
Yeah,
and even on start, they know exactly where to go to remove those features.
Staff from Mayor Pro Tem Castick Tatum's office.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commander, for the presentation. Looking at slide number 13, you list some of the resources used on the task force. I'm just curious, the license plate reader services, how effective were those services?
It's very effective. It's been a game changer for us. I mean, I'm sure in other presentations you've heard the term force multiplier. You know, when we're looking to increase our efficiency in the way that we do investigations, license plate readers has really been a game changer. It gives us so much information and leads to follow up on. So it makes our job much easier, the more technology that we can use.
Thank you.
Commander, looking at Senate Bill 224, so it's been in effect for a little over a year now. Is there anything that you wish it would have included that it didn't, that maybe in the next legislative session we need to push for adding something to this bill?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. We've had those discussions on the advisory committee, but nothing significant has come out at this point that we absolutely need in the bill. But those can. The next meeting is October in Laredo, so maybe we'll have some more discussion on that.
Great, thank you. Are there any other council members or staff who have questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our public speakers. First up is Bob Choate.
Good morning. I have just, believe it or not, one issue. With this new administration and the quest for transparency, there's a piece that's missing, and that's HPD's monthly operational summary. This is the one that's online right now available, April of 2024. In the past administration, the monthly operational summaries were, in my humble opinion, slow in coming out, not coming out until like the 20th or 25th of the following month, where, you know, that should have been speeded up. But so what's happening now? We can't see statistics for May, June, or now July. That's kind of important. Thank you. Oh, and one other thing. I brought to the former committee's attention late last year, the weighted average on response times had increased quite a bit from 2018 to 2023 at a weighted average of over 60 minutes, and it's not getting any better. At least as of April, it's 64.8 minutes, and that's a major concern. If listening to this presentation, someone reports a catalytic converter or their car stolen, as long as there's nobody bleeding in the driveway, that gets recorded, I believe, or posted as a priority 4 or 5 response code, which right now is running 90 to 104 minutes. That's pretty frustrating for the constituencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Choate. I agree. You know, response times, whatever we can do to speed that up, I think we would all be in favor of that. And then for the monthly operational summary, District A team is taking notes on that, and we'll find out an answer on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Laura Gallier.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? My name is Laura Gallier, and I'm a senior white District C constituent with a large Houston family, 5 generations, including my children and grandchildren. We all feel safe in Houston. I'm also a member of Pure Justice, and my comments are taken from the experiences of our members, primarily African American, who are impacted by law enforcement. I'm asking you to reimagine public safety without law enforcement stopping drivers for non-safety violations. Hear me out. This may be a stretch for you, as it was once for me. You've seen me here many times listening to HPD ask for more officers, more vehicles, and I get it. Almost anyone can do more with more, but what if they can't get more and need to find ways to do more with what they have? Highly trained, armed and law enforcement are not the only or best way to enforce expired vehicle registration, broken taillights, and other minor vehicle equipment violations. Surveys show that officers themselves would rather focus on dangerous drivers and criminals than poor folks whose vehicle is safe but out of compliance. These sorts of enforcements can be done by technology that HPD already has, operated by folks who are not as highly trained or armed in less expensive vehicles without stopping drivers. For example, we talked about license reader technology. It can identify the owner of the vehicle and a citation can be mailed to them. To enhance public safety, the citation can include instructions on how to get a voucher for repairs if they can't afford them, which is often why the vehicle is out of compliance. This is just one suggestion. I don't have a complete imagination about how this can be done. It makes sense to me that highly trained law enforcement officers make the community safer when they are solving the backlog of crimes rather than stopping drivers. I've recommended to you before the book Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. In it, among other things, he goes through the history of law enforcement traffic stops. Spoiler alert, it wasn't always as common as it is now, and it's only effective when it's used with precision. It is not effective as a pretext stop, resulting in a very low percentage of finding any kind of contraband. Most of the time it is a waste of taxpayer dollars, and it makes the community feel less safe because traffic stops have become the most common type of interaction community members have with police. Please open your imagination to the possibility of getting armed officers out of non-safety traffic stops. And I'm open to any questions.
Councilmember Alcorn.
Thank you for coming. I really listened to your comments, and you made a lot of good points. I know some other cities have done something similar. I like the idea of using technology. We certainly want to have our officers working on the most higher priority situations. I have heard the argument that is a lot of times we find suspects that way through traffic stops. So I'd be interested in learning more about the statistics you quoted, that was a very small percentage. If it's speeding and that kind of thing, running lights, I do still feel like that's very important, because I feel like we need to stop more people that are doing that. But thank you for doing the research and coming up, and to the extent you can elaborate on the statistics or where you got those, I'd be happy to hear.
I will do. I'll send it to you this week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who didn't sign up that would like to speak? All right, seeing none, all material can be found on the website at houstontx.gov/council/committee/public safety. Our next committee meeting will be on Tuesday, September 10th at 10 a.m. We stand adjourned.
Served. That being said, some folks are in different states now, different jurisdictions, and so that's much more difficult for the prosecutors to actually serve one that they can enforce, and then if they really had to attach them and physically bring them back, right, that's sort of a really high bar, and they're probably not going to want to go through all of that for any one particular case. But we do work with the DA's office to the extent we can to help them get in contact with other former employees. We field questions from them. In fact, this morning as I was getting ready, I had an email from a former employee about a subpoena saying, hey, I got this subpoena, what should I do? We talked to the DAs about, how to increase their efforts to do it, because it really is on them to go get their witness. We're going to help because we want them to come back in most circumstances, but that's part of the DA's role in securing any necessary witnesses. We also provide our former employees with records that they need to review. We give the DA's information to say, hey, if this person for some reason is no longer competent in the field, right, you can call them for the facts about the case, but we're more than happy to come and talk about the science and give more context to that piece of it if they're no longer competent, as a, forensic biologist, et cetera. So it's something that we've always had to work on, and we do encourage strongly for the DAs to go and get their witness, but it's certainly a balance. So hopefully that answered the question.
I just have a question, and that is in the employment contract. Is there a provision where, as terms of the employment, that they would accept service if they are no longer employed by the center?
Great question. So we're all at-will employees, and none of us have employment contracts except for Dr. Stout. So the best we do is in the hiring process, when they're onboarded, again, we talk about this obligation to come back after you've left. It's the duty of a public servant. If that's not something that's within your mind frame, maybe public service in this context is not for you, right? Because it's enduring. We have murder cases that get tried several years later, or maybe it comes back on post-conviction writ several years later. We do expect you to come back. So we tell them in the front end, and then again, like I said, on the way out, we give them a form that is, acknowledged and documented. But